Right, good morning. I'm Tony Hurry. I'm what's called a Senior Civil Contingencies Officer for Somerset County Council. We used to be called Emergency Planning Officers, so my normal job is planning for emergencies in and around the county of Somerset. It just so happens that one of the plans I look after is the response to an off-site nuclear emergency that could involve either point A or point B. My reason for the visit today is just to ensure under REPIA 2009, which is the government legislation, that I've passed on information to you as members of the public who are in what is called the Detailed Emergency Planning Zone. Now that's an area of 3.5 kilometres around Hinkley Point. That is an area judged that we would need to take emergency measures for the protection of the public in the unlikely event of an on-site nuclear emergency. Part of that requirement is to make sure that you have the information to know what to do in the unlikely event of an off-site nuclear emergency, which is primarily to shelter, and I'll talk more about that in a moment, and to take potassium iodate tablets in the event of an off-site nuclear emergency involving nuclear site B. I brought the potassium iodate tablets with me.
Brilliant.
I've also brought information from the Somerset Direction of Public Health to go with those tablets. How many people have you got on the site at the moment?
We're not really into discussing the numbers that we've got on the site.
It would help me so I know how many tablets I've got to give out.
Well, you could. I'm sure we could take all that you've got there, and if you want to bring some more at some point, that'd be good.
Well, because they're a controlled substance from the Director of Public Health, they like to know, she would like to know, just how many I'm issuing out. Now, normally it's 2 tablets for an adult as a one-off dose, and that they come in packs of 10, so one packet would take 5 people. So if you've got more than 5 people, that's 2 packets. If you've got more than if you've got more than if you've got more than 7, then that's 4 packets.
You know, you said that you're here because you're talking to us as like members of the
Public, yeah.
The security guards that are out there working.
Yes.
Who's responsible for giving them iodate tablets and talking to them about the risk that they face?
That's done by EDF Energy, and we've made sure that those particular arrangements for all the workforce that's involved in the complex is adequately covered, so they firstly know what to do in the event of an on-site.
So can I ask how you make sure that they're adequately covered, please? I'm not so sure that the security people have the same treatment that we've had today.
What I can tell you is that the Office of Nuclear Regulation, formerly the Health and Safety Executive Nuclear Installation Inspectorate, they're now the Office of Nuclear Regulation, have actually carried out a series of assessments, including exercises, with people, and they are satisfied with the arrangements that have been put in place. Now, that is that EDF Energy has put in place. Now, I can't say any more about that, and you should speak to EDF Energy about that.
Right. So I'd rather speak to you about it because I know it's kind of authority.
No, because they are the way it's defined is that they are site workers covered under both REPIA and the Nuclear Installation Act of 1965. Therefore, there are quite specific requirements for looking after their safety. So I'd have to refer you to EDF Energy.
So what would you do if they were in breach of any of those regulations? I mean,
that's the point.
No, but the reason I ask is because if EDF were breaching those regulations, then talking to them in person would be a bit like, like putting Dracula in charge. But I think there's not a lot of point in talking to them. Really.
Let me just say on this point, and we can move on, that it is a matter for EDF and the Office of Nuclear Regulation as the nuclear regulator. Now, what I wanted to talk about, partly, is that every year EDF Energy, on behalf of the 2 nuclear operators, time take the
So what level can I ask? Because I know there's different levels of emergency that you have.
Well, I'm talking about an off-site nuclear
Yeah, no, I know.
Well, let's not just...
No,
Let me talk about our nuclear arrangements and not talk about the arrangements that were in place for Fukushima.
Okay, well, I have thyroid disease, okay, so I'm not in any hurry to take anything that... I know that this stuff is important as well, so I know that there's a point at which you don't take this stuff till, and what I'm trying to ascertain to you, and why I mentioned Japan, is because what I know about what has happened in Japan was that the people were issued tablets, the reactors have blown up, and they were being told not to take the tablets. So I just want to establish what level of emergency. So you say off-site, which means there's contamination spreading outside of the walls of that site.
What it means to declare an on-site nuclear emergency, it means that radioactivity has been detected being released from the site and it is moving off the site. That's what we mean by an on-site nuclear emergency.
But what level of radioactivity is the science? Because they've got their permitted level.
Well, yeah,
so I just
if
want
you
to try
have anything above background radiation, it's gone off site, it will be treated. They will measure emergency. Now, you mentioned, and just let me say, you have an allergy or a thing. They give a list here in point 7 about when you should not take potassium iodide tablets. Now, the other thing that I wanted to cover is that also with the calendar.
Like that, same me.
What we have to warn the general public inside the detailed emergency plan is a telephone information system, and by filling in this with your telephone number and posting it, they will add you to the detailed emergency planning zone telephone system. So in the event of saying an unlikely event, then you would receive a message. Okay, a text. Well, it's a.
That's a fantastic service, isn't it? They always need emergencies. Brilliant.
Anyway, so those are all those things. I bought several copies. So you
Can I ask you what happens in the event of this confusion and you've got a government saying there's not an emergency when there is an emergency? How do I know when there must be an emergency or not? Because it seems to happen in Japan that they say, oh no, don't worry, there's nothing going on, there's nothing going on. But if there actually was something going on, I mean, how do I know?
Well, firstly, that we declare an off-site nuclear emergency is not a central government or government issue. That is determined from the circumstances around.
So that's the operator.
The operator would declare that off-site nuclear emergency, but they are required to.
But the thing is, what people are required to do under law and what people do in reality when there's...
You're talking about a federal situation.
What I want to get to the bottom of is, you said that the definition of an off-site emergency is
an off-site nuclear emergency
is anything that includes radioactivity above background levels, leaving the site there and going off-site. So what I want to ask you is, when they have an unplanned event, because those unplanned events involve levels of radioactivity that are above background and they do leave the site, does the siren go off then?
They would activate their emergency procedures, which include sounding the siren.
So when there's an unplanned event, they should sound the siren? Right, brilliant.
Now, if I give you that,
Yep.
now, on the tablets and on the emergency procedures, I'll just reiterate, I would suggest that if if you are told there's an off-site nuclear emergency, then this isn't a suitable structure, any of these structures here, for shelter.
Yeah.
What you should do is leave the immediate area and go outside the detailed emergency planning zone,
Yeah.
which stretches 3.5 kilometres
Yeah, you can
from
be
the
safe
site.
knowing that radiation stops at that 3.5 kilometre
No,
mark.
it is then, in the early stages, that those are the immediate countermeasures that
Okay.
in place, which are firstly to tell people to go in, stay in, tune in.
What do you tune into?
Local radio. Have you got your own?
Yeah, got a
okay.
radio.
Well, tune into one of the local radio stations.
Right.
And also, although you haven't got it here, it goes out on TV. One of the things we deal with is the BBC under its public service.
The BBC is to do with the government, aren't they? The British Broadcasting Corporation.
Just let me
Yeah.
talk about this. Under its remit as a public broadcasting service, we also have a system for being able to get into local radio and TV to get emergency messages passed out, and messages passed to the general population,
Yeah.
telling them what's happening in the area.
Yeah.
Now, those people who live inside the detailed emergency planning zone,
Yeah.
DEP said telephone messages, and then we use public radio, or we use local radio stations, not just the BBC but the other independents, and we use local TV stations, and they will issue these public safety announcements as well. They don't make any change to those public safety. They issue safety messages.
Yeah. So, can I ask, 'cause how hard do they try? Like, if my phone was on an answer phone, do they just phone once, twice, three
It's an
times?
automatic system, so it's built into that how many times it phones. But if you've got an answer phone on there, it should pick up the message. If you're using a mobile phone and you've missed the call, when you get the missed call and you activate it, then it should come up with the message itself.
Yeah. See, I know you don't really want us to talk about Japan, but you see, the thing is, as members of the British public, and having watched what's gone on in Japan and watched it quite closely from when it happened, you know, there was a great deal of confusion. And again, I reiterate the fact that if you're saying that it's down to the operators to let people know.
No, we have, look, pardon, we have what's called an off-site nuclear emergency plan,
Yeah.
which Somerset County Council,
I've got a copy of it.
Somerset County Council for making sure that members of the public in the area are kept informed of what's happening. And the way we do that is through our normal procedures with the other emergency services, primarily for the police, for providing information to the public.
Maybe I could give you a little bit of feedback then, because we've been quite interested in your emergency evacuation plans. We've spent quite a long time looking at them actually, and it's actually not so easy for anyone who doesn't live in the DPZ to get the details of the emergency evacuation plans. Now, what you've also, I'm sure you already know.
Well, what you have there are copies of what we pass to the public inside the detailed emergency
Yeah, but
plan.
what I'm going to raise with you now is an issue for people who live outside of the DPZ, because when there is an off-site and nuclear emergency, as you know and as I know, there are members of the population involved in those emergency scenarios that do not live in the DPZ. Around Chernobyl there's a 30-kilometre exclusionary zone, and around Fukushima there's at least a 20
Well, look,
kilometre
if
zone.
you
But I want to talk about
no,
this because...
I'm not prepared at the moment to talk about it. I've given you my card.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you consider the questions you want to ask?
I know what the questions are.
No,
so I'd rather just
and
ask
put
you.
them in writing, because
Right.
it's easier for us to deal with your questions in writing.
Why is it? So why can I not ask you now while we're in person? Because I know I've got the questions right here.
No, I would
Because
prefer...
I've actually been wanting to see you to ask you.
No.
It's just a
I
great
would
time.
prefer, myself, to be able to answer... I've given you the information now,
Okay.
because you're here on this site. If there are other questions,
Okay.
then we can deal with that in a different way.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Did you
time.
get a cup of tea?
No, I didn't, but never mind.
Well, you are, sir.
Yeah, Thanks for bringing it.